I love when the newspapers who are sued by Donald Trump fight back the way they know how on the front pages of their own paper. Like when the Wall Street Journal got sued for billions of dollars in defamation by Donald Trump in Miami. What did they do the next day? They published more articles about the Epstein birthday book and then brought the proof to the American people. And now that the New York Times has been sued, you may have heard late last night, a 78-page court case filed in Tampa, Florida. Now that that's been sued, where they're being sued for $50 billion more than their actual net worth, they fired back already with an elaborate, detailed, forensic analysis of an unethical relationship between the Trump administration and its advisors and the UAE, the United Arab Emirates, Donald Trump's cryptocurrency company, and high-tech AI computer chips that will one day end up, no doubt, going from the UAE to China, courtesy of Donald Trump. I'm going to break down how newspapers and journalists fight back. Never pick a fight with somebody who buys ink by the barrel and who doesn't care about a meritless, bad faith filing in federal court. I bring it all together right here on the MeidasTouch network. So the New York Times has been a critic of Donald Trump forever, for years, certainly since he started his political life, running article after article with good journalistic integrity about Donald Trump's frauds, about his relationships, about his lawsuits against him, covering the $500 million civil fraud judgment against his companies, finding to this day that his companies committed persistent fraud in the operation of their business. His companies in New York are still under a former federal judge's monitorship. Okay? The fact that he was convicted of 34 felony counts in New York, the fact that his companies were convicted of 19 felony counts of business record fraud. I mean, it's not hard to make a case against Donald Trump's against his qualifications to be president at any given time. But Donald Trump doesn't like that. He has a mythology about himself, all represented, all either written by Donald Trump or someone in the White House and signed by Alejandro Brito, a lawyer in Coral Gables, who's getting very full of himself because he's filed other lawsuits against CBS and got a check, and against ABC and got a check. So now he thinks he's going to do it against the Wall Street Journal and against the and New York Times, and no way. Let me talk about how the New York Times, within moments of this lawsuit being filed in Tampa, Florida, I'll talk about why that happened, fired back with yet another expose of a new conflict worth millions of dollars and undermining our national security, courtesy of Donald Trump and Steve Witkoff, who's in his administration. We did the reporting a couple of months ago about $2 billion coming from the Arab Emirates, the United Arab Emirates, the Emirati, into a company called World Liberty Financial, owned and controlled by Donald Trump, his adult sons, all of his sons, and Steve Witkoff, who's his special envoy, effectively his Secretary of State for diplomacy, former golf buddy and real estate developer in New York and in Florida. Hold on to that name, Steve Witkoff. The $2 billion gets negotiated to come in. It's going to be used to buy $2 billion worth of stablecoin, a type of cryptocurrency tied to US dollar, that's then going to be invested into SoftBank and some other investments. At the same time as that investment is going on, Steve Witkoff is also involved with the negotiations about the United Arab Emirates getting access to high-end, top-secret artificial intelligence computer chips, the ones that go into military-grade weapons. And they want it because they want it for their economy, they want it for their military, and of course the UAE is very close to China, and I'm sure there's going to be a conduit for those chips to go to China. So Trump and his people broker, primarily through Steve Witkoff, both the $2 billion investment from the United Arab Emirates, benefiting Donald Trump's company, at the same time making sure that the United Arab Emirates get the chips. Is the $2 billion for the chips? Looks like it is. It looks like it's a quid pro quo, right? You make the investment into my company, making Steve Witkoff and me and my sons a whole lot of money, and suddenly we're going to broker you getting AI chips, even if it means our national security is being undermined. Now, there's a lot of different overlaps here, right? We've got Witkoff on both sides, both in the negotiations over the $2 billion investment into his own company, benefiting him while he's a government employee as special envoy. That breaches a lot of ethical walls, a lot of ethical requirements. He's also pushing for the AI chips to go. That's the quid pro quo. And you've got people on both sides. Like you've got a company called MGX. This is all New York Times reporting. A company called MGX, which is involved in the Emirati investment and the chip investment. You've got a Sheikh Al Nahyan, who's involved with the AI chips and the crypto investment. You see how this is getting tighter and tighter. The quid pro quo is getting more apparent between the two. And who's benefiting? Trump family, and Witkoff. So Trump is using our foreign policy, his powers as the president, to benefit himself financially. I mean, it's not a shock, but there's one other layer. And this is all from the New York Times reporting as soon as the lawsuit was filed. With nothing says, here's the middle finger back to you, Trump, smashing the serve overhead back at Trump like this article. Did you know the liver is the second largest organ in your body? It's responsible for over 500 functions. But for some reason, liver health doesn't always get the attention it deserves. Over 30% of Americans have a sluggish liver, a problem that often goes undetected until the very last minute. Dose is on a mission to educate us all on why it's so important to maintain your liver health, and has created an incredible product to help you do just that. I mean, I found a clinically supported, potent, and effective solution, and I can't wait to share it with you. Dose for Your Liver was formulated to cleanse your liver of unwanted elements, aid digestion. I mean, it acts as your body's filter, flushing out unwanted elements and breaking down what you consume into essential nutrients. The liver produces and regulates cholesterol, stores vitamins and minerals, and impacts digestive and metabolic health, among many other things. Dose's science-backed formula promotes liver function, aids digestion, eases bloating, and even boosts energy levels. In a double-blind, placebo-controlled clinical trial, Dose for Your Liver lowered liver enzyme levels by 50% in over 86% of participants. Stick with Dose and feel the incredible benefits over time. More energy, better digestion, reduced bloating, healthier liver enzyme function, reduction in brain fog, and better sleep. One Dose for Your Liver shot is equivalent to 17 shots of turmeric juice. Dose is gluten-free, dairy-free, sugar-free, and vegan. Save 30% on your first month of subscription by going to dosedaily.co/legalaf or entering legalaf at checkout. That's dosedaily.co/legalaf for 30% off your first month subscription. Also follow the ball and the money related to David Sacks. The New York Times article says David Sacks is a venture capitalist, meaning he works in the private sector, who is the lead negotiator for Donald Trump's White House between the United Arab Emirates on both the AI and the cryptocurrency deal. Again, could there be any tighter relationship? I mean, we're not even 1 degree separated between, hey, bake the $2 billion investment in my company and I will sell you chips. Hillary Clinton was pilloried because they accused her of selling influence in the Clinton Global Initiative while she was Secretary of State. That Clinton arranged meetings for Hillary Clinton after donations came in. That's kindergarten compared to what's happening here. Our US dollars, our AI chips are going to the United Arab Emirates because they made an investment into Donald Trump's companies benefiting Witkoff and his family. That's it. And it's brokered by David Sacks, a venture capitalist who's also making money as a side deal, who had to get a waiver. Even the White House thought it was unethical. They had to get a waiver for the ethical conflicts. And then we have a Laura Loomer link, which the New York Times reports on today as well. And the Laura Loomer link is Laura Loomer about 6 months ago, had a little shit list of people she wanted fired from the national security apparatus in the White House, a list of 6, and Trump just, without any thought process, just fired them all. So that meant the only person left who could negotiate the deal was David Sachs, the outside venture capitalist. And there's also a real estate developer friend of Witkoff's and Trump's who serves on the board of MGX, which is controlled by the sheikh who's negotiating both the AI chip deal and the money into Trump's pocket deal. Because every time somebody makes an investment into World Liberty Financial, he gets a VIG, he gets a commission. The velocity and the trade volume all comes through Trump and is a cash register and cash cow for Donald Trump. What I love about this story is so many things, besides the just outright corruption that and exploitation and abuse of power that the Times writes. And it would be an amazing expose regardless of the timing. But the fact that it came after this $55 billion screed. Here's what's going to happen with this lawsuit. I'm going to post this lawsuit on Legal AF Substack for you to read, so you can read it later today. And I'm going to do a video over on Legal AF YouTube channel breaking it down as well from a Florida lawyer perspective, somebody who practices and is a member of the Middle District of Florida. I'll kind of give you my unique perspective about this particular case and going after the book publisher and the New York Times for everybody because, oh, they were mean to me. They wrote books about how I'm a lucky loser and I squandered my father's fortune. You did. And how I was born with a silver spoon in my mouth and The Apprentice saved my career. I got news for the people like Alejandro Brito who filed this thing. Okay. I grew up in and around Donald Trump. I grew up in New Jersey when he went to Atlantic City. I was a young lawyer in New York when he was whatever he was in New York. Okay. I know the stories. All right. I know them from people who were involved. And here's the story. Donald Trump was a middling real estate developer, period. Mainly slapping his name on buildings rather than building them from the ground up. It was all about name and celebrity, right? His brand. Okay. He was a small family office. He was involved with a few trophy buildings that he eventually put his name on, some of which he lost in bankruptcy. Same thing in his business ventures down in Atlantic City. He's gone bankrupt several times, as most real estate developers have. He's bounced back from that. He has bankrupted out numerous other businesses, and this is fair game for reporting. And Donald Trump is not in the shining stars in the constellation or the firmament of New York big-time developers. Never is, never was at any time. And by the time he got on to The Apprentice, he was on the balls of his ass financially, coming out of multiple bankruptcies, including about casinos and all of his other companies. And I think the argument that was being made by the New York Times is that Trump needed Mark Burnett and The Apprentice to put him back in the game because he was sort of floundering. Sure, they were making money. He was a high 100 millionaire, maybe a low billionaire, but he had gone through so much financial corruption and crisis and bankruptcies that he needed to go on television. I'll ask it this way. What upstanding real life real estate developer who's not retired or hasn't kind of made all their fortune like Mark Cuban, goes on television on any of these shows anyway? The Shark Tank may be one exception, but except for Mark Rubin and maybe Barbara Corcoran, I mean, the rest of them are, middling, they're wealthy, they've done well, but are they multi-billionaire, super successful? No, they don't go on television. They don't go on Celebrity Apprentice and host it. Donald Trump needed it as a lifesaver, a life preserver. And that's the proper and fair game for reporting. But the takeaway from the New York Times is, just as the Wall Street Journal said in response to their multi-billion-dollar lawsuit, let's talk more about the Epstein crisis, not less. We'll continue to talk more about it right here on the MeidasTouch Network. Take a minute, slide over to Legal AF, the YouTube channel, and Legal AF, the Substack. Oh, yes, where this will be posted for your reading pleasure. Until my next report, I'm Michael Popok. Can't get your fill of Legal AF? Me neither. That's why we formed the Legal AF Substack. Every time we mention something in a hot take, whether it's a court filing or a oral argument, come over to the Substack. You'll find the court filing and the oral argument there, including a daily roundup that I do called, wait for it, Morning AF. What else? All the other contributors from Legal AF are there as well. We got some new reporting. We got interviews. We got ad-free versions of the podcast and hot takes. Where? Legal AF on Substack. Come over now to free subscribe.